Ta-da! It is I, Mr. Smith, once again. Says there's 7 of you here, that's good. That means there's 1.5 times my normal class. Just if you're in the chat, just let me know that you're in the chat. That would be cool, because otherwise I'm going to feel pretty lonely, you know. Anyone there? Cool. Yes, Jermaine. How's it going? Good. Right, so I'm gonna sort of like, we've gone down to 5 viewers now. I guess people didn't like that intro. Well, cool. So we've got Jermaine, we've got Amy, we've got Owen and Dylan. This is interesting. Do we have Gabe or Jack? Or are they not here? Apparently not. All right. Well, let's not worry too much about that. Right. I mean, I will give them some time to actually get in. In the meantime, have a look at the pictures you see on your screen. It's like from 5 years ago. Oh. Have a look at the pictures you see on your screen. Now, Dylan, hold your tongue, because I know you already know the answer to this. But what is the thing that links all of the pictures that are on the screen? What is the common theme linking those pictures? Don't be afraid to have a guess. I'm not going to reach out and punch you through the internet if you get it wrong. Although I could do that, but I'm not going to. Bird. It's not bird. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's only one of those images is actually a bird. We've got a dragonfly there, not a bird. We've got a bat, not a bird. Also not soup. Don't eat bat, friends. We've got a bird, actually a bird. We've got an orange slice. We've got a swirly thing, and we've got another swirly thing. Now, Jermaine has already said the correct answer, which is symmetry. 2 different types of symmetry, though. The top three have one type of symmetry. The bottom 3 have another type of symmetry. Can you tell me what the 2 different types of symmetry are? Do you know what the 2 different types of symmetry are? Are you aware that there are different types of symmetry? It's oh so quiet. Spinny is not the actual term. Okay, so the top 3 exhibit bilateral symmetry, which I believe is what Dylan means by liney symmetry. Bilateral, meaning if you draw a straight line down. It's the same on both sides of that straight line. Draw a straight line down there, it's the same on both sides. Draw a straight line down there, it's the same on both sides. Draw a straight line down there, it's the same on both sides. Now, for this orange slice, draw a straight line down there, it is the same on both sides as well. But the other one, rotational symmetry, is the other one. Okay, so if you look at this swirly plant thing, draw a straight line down. It's not the same on both sides, but if you rotate it around, you can sort of rotate it around, and it will be rotationally symmetrical. None of that stuff, bilateral or radial symmetry, is actually relevant to what we're doing. That's maths. but I figured I'll throw that in there. But symmetry is a key thing. We are going to have a look today at asymmetric encryption, which, I mean, you know what symmetry means. What about asymmetry? What does asymmetric mean? Ooh, math, yes. What does asymmetric symmetry mean? Asymmetric symmetry, that's not even a thing, is it? Not necessarily wonky, but that, I mean, a wonky thing is perhaps an example of something which is asymmetrical. Yeah, I mean, whereas symmetry means the same on both sides, asymmetry means different on both sides, not symmetric. Yeah, it's if you've played Final Fantasy X, or in fact any Final Fantasy game, most of the outfits seem to be asymmetrical because that makes you look cool and edgy or something. In fact, right now, in fact, I'm gonna do it now. There we go. I've rolled one leg of my trousers up so that my clothes are now asymmetrical. And also it means that one of my legs is now cold. There you go. Take that, liberals. Yeah. So anyway, the objective of this lesson, to understand the difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption. You've probably already got an idea of what that means. We'll also look into why symmetric encryption is weak. You might already have an idea of that as well. But also we'll look at something called public key encryption. Some of you might have used public key encryption. You might have heard of public key encryption, or you might have heard of PGP keys, but not fully understood exactly what's going on. So we'll have a look at that. Now, I don't anticipate this taking the full hour, so what we'll do is we'll go through this, and then I've got a short piece on cryptographic hashing, which ties in with the work that you guys were doing with brute force cracking programs, so we can sort of tie all of that up. Okay, sound good? Good. So, by the end of this lesson, you will understand the difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption, explain why symmetric encryption is weak, and demonstrate the principle of public key encryption methods such as PGP. I am assuming that you all have your notes open in some format, obviously, so make notes. Those of you who are GCSE students and tuning in for a little bit of advanced learning, don't worry if some of this stuff goes over your head. Some of it might be useful for your GCSE, but remember, this is sort of like the next level up. So tune in. Feel free to join in if you want, but don't feel that you're gonna miss out if you're not taking notes. A-level students, on the other hand, definitely should be taking notes. Now, year 13s that are tuning in for revision, that's cool. I mean, we've already been through this. I might have modified it slightly since I went through it with you, but still, it's all good. Okay, right. So moving on, symmetrical encryption. That is what we have looked at so far. Okay, all of the methods of encryption that you have seen so far are symmetrical. In order to decode something, you just apply the same method that you used to encode it in reverse. Yeah. So, for instance, if we are using a monoalphabetic substitution cipher, for instance, you write out your plain text alphabet, you write out your ciphertext alphabet. To encode, you look up each letter in the plain text alphabet and write down the corresponding letter in the ciphertext alphabet. To decode, you look up each letter in the ciphertext alphabet and write down the corresponding letter in the plain text alphabet. Right, super straightforward. Even those ciphers that use a password are symmetrical, right? You use the same password to encode and decode. Think about Gronsfeld, think about Visionaire. You've got the passcode for Gronsfeld. You use the same passcode to decode. You write that passcode above your ciphered text to decode it, right? It's symmetrical. Yeah, it's the same It's the same for encoding and decoding. Do we all understand that? I mean, I've laboured the point a little bit. Just give me a yes or a no if you understand the concept of symmetrical encryption. Dun, dun, dun. No one. Yes, yes, yeah. Okay. That, I mean, three out of 8 people. I guess that's good enough. I guess A level's just not as lit as GCSE. What can I say? Okay. So next question. Why is symmetrical encryption so weak? And for bonus points, why have I put that particular picture on the slide? So have a quick discussion. Have a quick discussion about that, and either here in the chat or on the Discord. You can hop on the Discord voice and have a bant. But why is symmetrical encryption weak? Now, I remember I said the Visionaire cipher, when used correctly, is uncrackable, and it is, right? But it's difficult to use. Chemo, Jermaine, come on, man. Any thoughts? Why is symmetrical encryption weak? I mean, we know why the monoalphabetic substitution ciphers are weak, but Visionaire, I mean, that's pretty strong, right? We've got a password. I've got my password. I tell you the password as well, and then we can both decode. Do you see a problem at any point there? Sometimes easy cracking, not always easy cracking though. You know, if you've got a solid Visionaire cipher. Human error. Do you want to go into more detail about that? Human error? Someone can sing the password. If you use the same method to decrypt, if you know how to encrypt, then you can decrypt. Yeah. Remember Shannon's maxim: the enemy knows the system. Yeah. Someone. Oh, right. I see. You're using slang terms. Yo, someone can sing the password, innit? Yes, if you've got to make sure that the password is actually given to the other person. I mean, what are you going to do? How can you fix that, right? I mean, you've got to get the password from you to the other person somehow, and the whole point of having that password is so that your data cannot get stolen. So can you suggest a way that we can make that process still using symmetric ciphers? So let's say we're using a Visionaire cipher, for instance, right? We've still got a password. How could we potentially make it that little bit stronger? Send carrier pigeon. I mean, I kind of want to say potentially. Can you explain your reasoning behind the carrier pigeon if it wasn't just a joke? I mean, 2 carrier pigeons, that might make it less secure because you're increasing the risk that someone could grab the password, right? Any other suggestions? Encrypt the password when sending. Potentially, yeah. I mean, that would make it stronger. But then how do you decrypt the password after that? All right? Do you see what I'm getting at here? Yeah? There are ways to make it. There are ways to make it stronger, like, for instance, encrypting the password. But the thing is, if someone gets hold of the password you use to encrypt the password, then they can decrypt the password, and then they can decrypt your message. In short, it's not easy to make symmetric ciphers stronger. Okay, so usually, if we're using symmetric ciphers, we wouldn't transmit the password. We would get someone to memorize it or something like that. Or if we were sending it, we wouldn't send it all in one go. We'd send it in sort of chunks. But obviously, this just makes it more and more complex. There's got to be a better way, hasn't there? Out of interest, does anyone know why I use these two images here? Why is this so weak? And whatever that image is there. Does anyone know why I use those different images? Yes, the second one is because, look, if you look, that's Britney Spears. Remember her? She was a thing once, and that song is called Stronger. The second there is no Kelly Clarkson here. There is no Kelly Clarkson. That there is Skunk Anansie, Skin, the singer from Skunk Anansie, who are a very, very good rock band. They had a song called Weak, which is very good. I'm not a Britney Spears fan. She's a little bit crazy. Reminds me too much of some of my ex-girlfriends. So there's that. All right. So there comes a point where using symmetric ciphers just ain't going to cut the mustard no more, right? And so we need to find a more secure method, especially now that computers are as powerful as they were. I mean, back in the 60s, computers were not that good at cracking these sorts of codes. That's why spies in the 60s still relied on things like the one-time pad, which is a modified Visionaire cipher. Okay. You want laser pointer? There you go. Right. We've got to move on from symmetric ciphers and have a look at sort of like the next level up, which is a lot more secure. Okay. So here is the thing, right? Asymmetric encryption. It uses a different password to encrypt it compared to the password it uses to decrypt it. So we effectively have two different passwords. And I know you're sat at home right now watching this stream and you're saying, what? How does that work, sir? You're talking nonsense. And you're immediately getting on Twitter, you're screenshotting this, and you're writing the hashtag #MyTeacherTalksNonsense. Okay? Why don't you feed the password to an animal and sell the animal to the client, then extract the password from the animal excretion? I mean, potentially you could do that, although I mean there's a long sort of buffer time in there, right? We want to be able to send this stuff reliably without having to go to all of this extra stuff. So my question to you is, how does this work? How do we use different... Oh, I've just got an email. How do we use different passwords to encode and decode, right? And this is the answer. It uses maths, right? I know you guys hate maths. You'll be pleased to know you do not have to understand the maths involved in asymmetric encryption. You just need to understand the concepts involved. Okay, now Tommy down here has mentioned private keys, which is good because we're going to have a look at those in a moment. Okay, now don't get me wrong, I love maths as well. Maths is pretty awesome. The maths that makes asymmetric encryption work is incredibly complex, and it involves lots of prime numbers, very big prime numbers. So that's something that we will get onto. Okay, so maths. Now, like I said, you don't need to understand the maths behind it, although Wikipedia has a whole ton of information about the maths and how it works. So feel free to dip into that if you want. Oh yes, prime numbers. When we're talking about encryption, prime numbers are a big thing. Okay, so it's prime numbers. So let's have a look. All right. Here we go. Alice wants to generate the passwords, if you like, which are going to be used to encrypt her stuff. Right? She has a very, very large random number, and she uses something called a key generation program. Right? And what the key generation program does, it does a lot of very, very complex maths involving that very large random number, and it generates two keys. Right? One of them is a public key and one of them is a private key, and they are both linked in the sense that they form effectively two ends of a mathematical equation. I'm simplifying a lot here, but just imagine that they form sort of like two parts of an equation. When they're joined together, they become whole. Okay, so there's a problem. There's a problem. I've mentioned random numbers. That's part of this problem. What is the problem that I'm talking about here when I talk about random numbers? Think about random numbers and computers. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I'm not necessarily expecting anyone to know what the problem is that I'm sort of hinting at here. But can anyone think of a problem that computers might have with random numbers? Either give us a guess down there, or just say I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Tommy Fallon showing up my A-level students right here. You can't really have a random moober. That's right, you can't have a random moober. I think that's going to be the quote of the day. You can't really have a random moober. In fact, gonna just copy and paste that right now. 1 second. Quote of the day. Tommy Fallon 2020. Boom, and pinned. Cool. Right. Okay. So yeah, it's very, very difficult to generate true randomness on a computer. Right? Computers are deterministic machines. They follow programs. They follow instructions. They cannot be spontaneous. Yeah, it's very difficult to generate a random number. Now, I don't know how many of you have set up public key encryption systems before. But when these key generation programs are running, what they'll usually say to you is, we're generating the number, we need entropy in the system, so mash that keyboard and move the mouse around and do stuff. Because what the random generator uses is things that are different on the computer, right? And those random inputs that you're making, they feed into the random number generator. And the more of that entropy that you introduce to the system, the more genuinely random the number is going to be. It's very, very complicated. Again, I am simplifying an awful lot, but it's very difficult to generate random numbers. Okay, so when you are generating these random numbers, you have to sort of like use little tricks to sort of like generate your own randomness that goes into the numbers. Okay, but do we understand what's going on here? We've got this random number. We generate these keys. Do you get the idea that these keys are two parts of one mathematical equation? Okay, they are inextricably linked, even though they're separate. Does that make sense? Don't listen to Tommy. Yes. Owen says yes. Good. Any others? Any others? Any others for yes? Don't be afraid to say no, because I'm happy to explain it. Okay, cool. Right. So rather than follow Tommy's instruction of publishing both keys on Reddit, the private key is something that should live on your computer and should never, ever, 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 ever make it out of your computer. That's where it should stay. Never, ever, ever let anyone but yourself know that private key. The public key, on the other hand, you can slap that all over the place. You can print it out and stick it on the town hall door. You can get a plane to do that smoke trail thing in the sky if you want to. But what people normally do is they upload it to a key server. MIT key server. Let me just get you a link to the MIT PGP key server. I will paste that in the chat. Okay, so that is that's the link to the MIT PGP key server. I'm just going to search for. Oh, the service is temporarily unavailable. Okay, so try that later on, I guess. But basically, what the key server is, it's a massive database of everyone's public keys, not their private keys, just their public keys. Okay, and the reason why we need that, I'm about to get onto, because let's have a look at what actually happens. We've got these two keys. The private key is always kept safe. The public key can be transmitted and broadcast. It is fine for everyone to know your public key. Okay, because without your private key, nothing doing. All right, this is what goes on. Okay, here's Bob. Bob wants to send a message to Alice. Okay, hello Alice. So Bob encrypts the message using Alice's public key. Right, now the way it works, remember Alice's public key is 1/2 of this mathematical equation. Okay, the only way that it will be able to be decrypted is with the other half of that mathematical equation, which is formed from Alice's private key. Right, so Bob encrypts using Alice's public key. Oh, look, there's the encrypted message there. And then when Alice receives it, she uses her private key, which forms the other part of the equation, to decrypt it. If anyone intercepts it on the way, they can't do anything with it. Even though they might have access to Alice's public key, it doesn't matter, because the next stage requires her private key to decrypt. Does that make sense? Okay, obviously if Alice wants to send a message back to Bob, well, you tell me, if Alice wants to send a message back to Bob, what's the process that Alice goes through to ensure that only Bob can view the message? Post it in the chat.
I've eaten some Oreos.
Yeah, so that's 1/2 of it, Jermaine. So Alice, what does Alice do with Bob's public key? Alice bonks the message with Bob's public key. Yes, Alice encrypts the message is probably the word I would use rather than bonk it. So Alice encrypts the message with Bob's public key, and then obviously Bob uses his private key to decrypt it. I mean, makes sense, right? This obviously, again, have to stress, hugely simplified here, but that's the fundamentals of what's actually going on. Does that make sense? Yeah. But wait, there's more. We can make this even more secure, and also we can make it so that a message can be decrypted by more than one person, which is useful if you want to send group chats, right? I'm assuming you guys use something like WhatsApp, which encrypts messages, and you have WhatsApp group chats and stuff like that. Obviously, those messages need to be encrypted with a public key and then decrypted with a private key. But if you're sending it to multiple people, well, how does that work? Yeah. So here we go. I mean, you can. I made a mistake when I pasted this message. I robbed this image off the internet from Wikipedia, by the way. So let's say Alice and Bob both want to be able to encrypt and decrypt messages, because it's worth noting, if I just go back up to was it this slide? If I just go back to this slide here, it's worth noting that when Bob encrypts the message with Alice's public key, he then cannot decrypt his own message because it's been encrypted with Alice's public key. He does not have access to Alice's private key. I mean, who does have access to Alice's private key? You know what I mean? But what we can do is combine the keys. Okay, so when Alice is sending a message to Bob, she will take her private key and Bob's public key and combine those keys to create what's called a shared secret. Okay, it's an encrypted message which can be decrypted by whoever's public keys were used. Okay. So, for instance, I mean, we've just got Alice and Bob here, but if Alice also wanted to send that message to Charlie, she could combine her private key, Bob's public key, and Charlie's public key, combine them all together, right? Then when Bob receives the message, he uses a combination of Alice's public key and his private key to decrypt it. Okay. Likewise, in the Charlie situation, if we had this ménage à trois, Alice encrypts using her private key, Bob's public key, and Charlie's public key. If Charlie receives it, he needs his private key, Alice's public key, and Bob's public key as well. Does that make sense? Okay, so in theory, you can combine all of these different public keys with your private key, and that means that anyone who is part of that keychain can then read those messages. Does that make sense to everyone? What's going on there? I think Tommy's been scarred here. No one's saying anything. Are you? I think so. Okay. Do you want me to sort of like go over that one more time? Yeah, you're not all sounding so sure about this. Not 100%. Okay, cool. Right. So let me sort of like break this down a little bit. Right. Remember, if Alice is just sending a message to Bob, or Bob is sending a message to Alice, yeah, when Bob encrypts using Alice's public key, he can't decrypt it. That's one way for Bob, because he doesn't have Alice's private key. Alice can decrypt it because she's got her private key. Okay. Likewise, if Alice was sending a message back to Bob in the same manner, she wouldn't be able to decrypt it. Okay, so in terms of the combination here, what's happening is Alice is encrypting a message, right? She uses not just her private key, but she uses the public keys of anyone that she wants to be able to read the message. Okay, in this instance, it's only Bob that she wants to be able to read the message. But if she wanted to make that message viewable to a whole bunch of people, as long as she had their public keys, she'd be able to combine all of the keys together to create this shared secret. Okay, and then whoever's receiving the message as long as their public key was used in the encryption, their private key will be able to decrypt it in combination with everyone else's public key. Okay? So what's going on there is like we're forming this massive mathematical equation with the encryptor's private key at the heart of it and everyone else's public key forming that combination. And then whoever's receiving it, because they have access to all of those public keys, they also have access to their private key. That unlocks the message for them. Does that make more sense to you now, how I've just explained it? Owen says yes. That's encouraging. Yes, if their public key has been used as part of the combination to encrypt, it means their private key can be used to decrypt it. It's just a way of adding a number of different people who are able to view it. It's worth noting as well that you can revoke your public keys as well. So if you've encrypted messages and at any point you want to say, you know what, I don't want anyone to actually read these messages again, you revoke your public key access and then they will not be able to be read again. Okay, it's useful if you are encrypting messages as part of a political campaign. When that campaign ends, you want to get rid of all of those messages, so you just revoke the keys. Yeah. Or if you think that someone's private key might have been compromised, you can revoke your public keys and they won't be able to decrypt the messages anymore. Okay?
But wait, there's more.
It's not just encryption. Hillary type. Yeah, it's not just encryption that we use this process for. In fact, it's less often that we use this for encryption. It's more for sort of verifying people's identity. Okay, yes. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying new styles. All right, I'm trying new styles.
Maybe you people want some ASMR lessons. I can talk to you about encryption. I can talk to you about asymmetric encryption.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not ASMR. So it's not just encryption that we use it for, right? Let's say. Where am I going with this? Where am I going with this? Oh yeah, let's say I don't know what a mukbang is. Let's say you don't necessarily, you don't mind having the information read by anyone, but you want them to be aware that it has definitely come from you and not from some nasty person pretending to be you. Okay. What's it called when someone pretends to be someone they're not in order to try and extract information from you? Oh, hi Tommy's mum, by the way. If she's still there, I don't know. Right, we're not talking about mukbang anymore. It's not a catfish. Vishing is voice solicitation. If we're talking about emails, what's it called? Not cosplaying. No, it's not cosplaying. It's similar to vishing. It's not quite the same. What's it called? You get a dodgy email. Smishing is text messages. Okay, there was a lot of people on the Discord talking about getting smishing messages from the government the other day. It's not farming. I can't believe we've gone through everything except the thing it is. Phishing. That's the one. Phishing. Okay, a phishing email. You get an email from someone, right? It's a phishing email, right? Now, on the subject of farming. Farming is not necessarily keylogging. Farming is more browser hijacking. So when you go to a web page, it redirects you to a different web page, which is set up to look like the legit one, or it routes you through a proxy, which can then sort of like track your key presses and stuff like that. Okay. Now, you guys, in fact, if you go to have a look in your web browser. Presumably, you should see a little padlock to the left of the URL in the address bar. Okay, if you click on that padlock, you should be able to view the certificate. If you click on that padlock, there's usually something that says more information, something like that. Let's see if I can just add something to the stream to show you what the thing looks like on mine. Let's go window capture there. That's not the one that I want, is it? That one? There we go. Yeah, you might have something like that. Yeah. That tells you, look, I can see this website's identity. It's YouTube. This website does not supply ownership information, but you can click on View Certificate, and that will take you to a page that has got the digital signature, so you can verify exactly who has made the website, for example. Okay, just get rid of that. No, did not mean to do that. That's better. What have I done here? Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! What have I done? That'll do. Yeah. I've messed everything up. It's all gone a bit Pete Tong. Oh, there we go. Almost. Nope. Right. Okay. We're back in the real world here. I'm sorry about that, guys. Deeply sorry. ontheflyediting.com, right? So yeah, we use digital signatures, right? The way that a digital signature works, it uses the same technology. It's the same thing, using public keys and private keys. Okay? Is this actually full on? Yes, that's all right. Okay, so what happens is the message itself doesn't necessarily get encrypted, but the way that it is signed is the message, or a part of the message, will be encrypted with Alice's private key, okay, and that will be attached to the end of the message. Okay, so she's sending hello Bob, and then there's an encrypted version, encrypted with her private key attached to the end. Okay, when Bob receives the message, he can read it because it's not encrypted, but then he will use Alice's public key to decrypt that part of the message that has been encrypted and verified. Because if the message has been tampered with, or it has been encrypted using someone else's public key, someone else's private key, it will not be able to be decrypted with Alice's public key. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? Yes, no. Yes, yes, yes. Good, good. Yes, yes, yes. Good, good. Tough time never lasts. No, you cannot publish your private key. Keep your private key private. Okay. So we get the idea of digital signatures, right? Okay. When I send an email, I usually sign it using my private key. I don't encrypt it because I'm not really sending anything that needs protecting, but it does mean that people can verify that it's definitely come from me and not some imposter pretending to be me. Okay, so there's this thing called PGP. If you keep your public key private, it doesn't make a difference. What? No, you always keep your private key private. You make your public key public. If someone gets hold of your private key, then it means that they can impersonate you. It means that they can sign things pretending to be you. It means that they can encrypt things, right, pretending to be you. Yeah? The public key is fundamentally different from the private key. So, PGP. Quickly go on the internet, find out what PGP stands for, and paste it in the chat. Do it. Do it. Come on. Come on, do it now. Yeah, pretty good privacy, or pretty good privacy, I should say. Yes, that's what it stands for. It's a bit of an understatement because PGP is incredibly strong encryption. It's not poop guard protector. What your search history is all about, but yeah, it's not just for encrypting email. It's for encrypting any text. Okay, any text, any images, any files, like any of that stuff, right? You can use. It's digital encryption, right? It stands for pretty good privacy, and it's actually very, very good. Okay, it's open source, which means that everyone has access to the source code. They know how it works. Remember Shannon's maxim. What is Shannon's maxim? Anyone know what Shannon's maxim is? The enemy knows the system. Yes, that is Shannon's maxim. Not to be confused with...
Now about damn it. About damn it. Tough time never lasts. Only tough people last.
That's not Shannon's maxim. That's Demi's maxim. So there's that. Yes, there should only be a couple of seconds delay. I hope I've set it to ultra low latency. But I'm sorry. Yeah, don't feel like compelled to reply immediately. So yeah, Shannon's maxim is the enemy knows the system. The idea being that your system is genuinely secure if the enemy knows exactly how it works and they still cannot break in. Right? And the way that PGP works, everyone can see exactly how it works and people still cannot break in, therefore it is secure. Okay? Security through obscurity is no security at all. However, do we think that this is perfect? Just a quick yay or nay in the chat there if you think that this is perfect. Probably not. Yeah, no, it's nothing's perfect, right? It's genuinely very good. There are some weaknesses. Okay, so here's some weaknesses to make note of. The security of your encryption is dependent on the secrecy of the private key. Now, that makes it more secure than symmetric encryption because that private key never needs to go anywhere. It stays on the computer where you are making the messages. You don't need to give that anywhere. So the only way that someone can get hold of that private key is if they actually get access to your computer, right? However, if someone does get hold of that private key, then obviously they have access to everything. If your private key gets lost, your messages become unreadable. That kind of sucks, right? So it's one of those single point of failure jobbies. If you lose your private key, it becomes unreadable. So you create the key, you should back it up somewhere, but where do you back it up to? You've got to keep that thing safe. What a lot of people do is they will back up their key onto a USB stick and keep that USB stick in a locked safe so that people can't find it, but they still have a backup. Okay, a digital signature alone is not necessarily proof that the person is who they claim to be. And on the next slide, I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail. Okay, so digital signature, you can be reasonably sure that it's guaranteed that a digital signature made with a private key definitely came from the person who holds that private key. But just because it's been signed using that private key, that doesn't necessarily mean that private key definitely belongs to the person that claims to own it. I could claim that my private key is owned by, I don't know, Britney Spears, let's say. I doubt Britney Spears uses encryption or digital signatures, to be honest, but I could make that claim, and then I could put up a public key saying here's Britney Spears' public key, and then people will use that public key and they'll say, oh, this is legit. But of course, the whole time it was me, not Britney Spears. Dioda, as they say. So you've got to make sure that you trust the people who are claiming that they are who they say they are. And there is this thing called the web of trust. Yeah, that's right, the web of trust. I'm not a Britney Spears fanboy. I don't actually like any of her songs. There's a few posters where she looks quite attractive, not going to lie. But not a fan of her work, to be honest. So, here we go. When you look at the padlock icon and you view people's digital signatures, right? Each of those digital certificates are issued by a certificate authority. There is like a place which issues these certificates, and you have to pay for them, right? That's why www.666.co.uk doesn't have an HTTPS certificate, because I can't afford it. It's just standard. So you have to pay for these digital signatures. They have to be renewed every so often as well. Those of you who were in my class when we were trying to set up the GitHub stuff, and we ran into those errors saying self-signed certificate in certificate chain. That error occurs because Git says, wait a minute, I don't think this certificate's legit, because what happens is the school proxy server opens your packets, inspects them, and then re-signs them with the proxy's certificate, and so the system says that's not from who it claims to be. Okay, so the certificate authority is the place that issues these certificates, right? And they have to be renewed. Okay. Now, in terms of PGP, there is this thing called the web of trust. And what the web of trust is, it's basically when people can verify that this key pair definitely belongs to this person, they can sign the keys. Okay, and so when you sign a public key, it basically adds your trust to that key. Okay, and then anyone else that signs that key adds their trust to that key. Okay, and some people might say, "Oh, can you sign my public key?" Never sign someone's public key unless you actually meet them in person. You should only sign someone's public key in person. And what a lot of nerdy people do is they will have key signing parties where they all get together with their laptops. I'm not making this up. They all get together with their laptops and they say, "Hey, it's me, yo, here's my digital signature, can you sign my public key?" And then you sign your public key, you add bits of your information to theirs so that people can see, oh, this person's legit. Okay, because obviously if there's just one person on their own saying, "Hi, I'm Britney Spears," then people might say, "That I don't think that's Britney Spears." But if one other person says, "No, that is Britney Spears, I met her," you might think, "Well, I suppose, well, how trustworthy is this guy though?" And if like 1,000 other people have signed that guy, that makes him a little bit more trustworthy. And if you think, well, if he says that it's Britney Spears, it must be. But then more and more people sign Britney Spears' key, saying, "Yeah, no, I met her in person. She brought a laptop round. It's definitely her. You can trust this person." Okay, does that make sense? That makes sense? Is that a yes or a no? I don't worship Britney Spears. I was carrying on a running joke. Cool. So we get the whole web of trust thing. Now, I'm going to recommend a book for you, which is called Little Brother by Cory Doctorow. It features teenage protagonists dealing with some cybersecurity issues. It's a great book, and the tech is generally pretty on point. And as a bonus, you can get it for free. Let me find Little Brother book. I have communicated with Cory Doctorow, the author. I sent him an email saying this book is brilliant. I'm going to recommend it to all of my classes, and he said, "That's cool. Do you do that, man?" And throughout that whole discourse, we were both signing our emails with our public and private keys. So here is a link to the book. It's available in a billion different formats. It's a great read. Highly recommend getting it. And here is a humorous comic. This is from XKCD. Hey, I just got home from the party. Oh, the one with the IRC folks? Yeah. How was it? I got too drunk. I screwed up bad. What happened? Oh, there was a girl. No idea who she was. I don't even know her name. I was too drunk to care. And what, you slept with her? No. I signed her public key. Oh, shit, man. There you go. There's a humorous reading of that comic. The idea being that getting drunk at a party and sleeping with someone is nowhere near as bad as getting drunk at a party and signing her public key. Because remember, you've got to know who these people are, right? You've got to actually trust them before you sign their public key. Apologies to everyone involved in the making of that comic strip, which I just ruined with my stupid voices. Okay. If anyone wants me to do some more dramatic readings of things, I'm here all week. A beat is a beat. No. Don't get drunk. I mean, and don't disrespect women. And don't ever sign someone's public key unless you trust them. Okay, we've already been through this, but just as a recap, where do you see digital certificates in your daily life? I've pointed it out to you once already. Where do you see that ish? I mean, you might not see them in your daily life, but now you're aware that they exist. Yeah, well, not necessarily the Firefox address bar, but any web browser. When you what's the protocol in use when that padlock appears? Yeah, HTTPS. What's the S short for? Yes, the S is short for secure. The way that it maintains security is through this asymmetric encryption of data which is being sent, and also through the digital signatures. Okay, so it's not just a case of encrypting the data, but also using digital signatures to verify where the things come from. Make sense? Now you know a little bit more. I've got a screenshot here. Yours might have looked like that. I don't know. This is a screenshot from a Windows 7 machine, apparently. So that while ago that I got that screenshot. Okay, but we're clear on the fact that it's HTTPS doesn't just encrypt data that's being sent, but it also uses digital signatures to verify who has created the web page. Yeah. Yeah, good. Right, I mean, that's about it for asymmetric encryption. Does anyone have any questions about the stuff that we've gone over over the course of the past hour? Yeah, that's fine. You can rewatch it to your heart's content. It will remain up here. It looks like I've just got another email. You're good, right? I'm aware that we've been on for an hour. We've covered all of the stuff regarding asymmetric encryption. I did want to go over some stuff about cryptographic hashing, but do you guys mind terribly if I save that for another time? Or are you itching to go over? I mean, it's going to take probably another half an hour or something. Do you want me to sort of finish up now, or? Leave it. Okay, cool. We will reconvene. Oh, by the way, Amy, recognize him? Cool. Right. Okay. So I will wind up here. And I will let you know when the next stream's going to be. Obviously, I mean, things are a little bit up in the air this week. I'm a little bit sort of rushed off my feet trying to get everything all sorted. Hopefully by next week we'll be back into some semblance of a routine. So if for any reason I go dark or you don't hear from me in a while, one of the things that you can be doing is continuing your programming practice, because the more you do it, the better you're going to get. Okay, that, my friends, is that. Thank you for tuning in. I don't really have a cool sign off. I already did the pretending to shoot myself in the head at the end of the GCSE one. I mean, and that's that. I think that's about enough, as much edge as I can handle in a single day. So I might just say thanks for coming to my TED talk. I'm here all week. Okay. I've got 10 minutes left until school finishes. That's fine. Right. Shall we end it now? Let's end it now. As they say. Thank you guys. Bye.